Okay. Chullin, Aleph Vav. Thank you for the sending the
Right.
stuff. I don't know
So
why I
no,
do it all the time.
no problem.
What
Go to Dalet Gimel.
Dolly Gimel? Oh,
Yeah,
oh, go.
there's a second batch of Mishnayos in Chullin. We want to do the later ones first.
Okay. Um, if a fetus died in the womb of an animal and the shepherd stretched out his hand and touched it, whether it's a non-kosher or a kosher animal, he is tahor. Rabbi Yossi Agili says if it is non-kosher animal, he is tameh, and if it's a kosher animal, he is tahor. If a fetus died within a woman's womb and the midwife stretched out her hand and touched it, the midwife is tameh for 7 days, and the woman is tahor until the fetus comes out. If an animal is in difficult labor and the fetus thrust forth its foreleg, and one cut it off, and afterwards he slaughtered its mother, the flesh is tahor. If he slaughtered its mother and afterwards he cut it off, the flesh is regarded as having touched a nevela. And these are the words of Rameya. But the commentator, it is regarded as having touched a slaughtered treifa. Just as we find in the case of a treifa that is slaughtered, we render the tahor, so too to the slaughtering of an animal render the limb tahor. Replied Reb Meir, not so. If the shkita of a treifa renders a tahor, the thing which is its own body should also render the limb tahor. A thing which is not its own body. No, I'm sorry. A thing which is own body, should it also render the limb tahor? A thing which is not its own body. From where do we learn that the slaughtering of a treifa renders a tahor? A non-kosher animal is prohibited to be eaten, and a treifa is also prohibited to be eaten. Just as a non-kosher animal cannot be rendered tahor by its slaughtering, so too treifa cannot be rendered tahor by its slaughtering. Not so. If this can be said of a non-kosher animal which has never had a time of fitness, can the same be said of a treifa which had the time of fitness? Take back what you thought. Well, if it was born treifa, how do we know it? Not so. If this can be said of a non-kosher animal whose entire species has no shkita, can the same be said of a treifa whose species has shkita? An 8-month live birth, its slaughtering does not render it tahor because there is no slaughtering of its kind. If one slaughters an animal and finds it in an 8-month fetus alive or a dead 9-month fetus, he tears it open and takes out its blood. If he finds a 9-month live fetus, it requires slaughtering and is subject to the prohibition of and its offering. These are the words of a mayor. But the comments say the slaughtering of its mother renders it permissible. Reb Shimon Sidori says even if it is 8 years old and is plowing in the field, the slaughtering of its mother renders it permissible. If he tore her open and he found it in a 9-month live fetus, it requires shkita because its mother was not slaughtered.
Okay, then that's the this. Okay. Okay, so in other words, it was a completely viable fetus already, so a viable calf already, so
Right.
that's not considered shachut. Okay.
Okay.
That's because its mother died, and he found a living animal inside there. So there it was it requires its own shechita. But if it was shechted inside its mother, it is still considered tahor. Okay, it's considered like it's already shechted. So that's the remarkable case of the calf that of the animal that doesn't require shechita at all. And Rav Shimon Shazuri goes like really extreme over here. So that this animal could live for another 8 years, and then you decide one day you want to kill it, you just bonk it over the head and or shoot
Okay.
it, one bullet through the brain, and it's kosher because it was already shechted.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The halakha doesn't follow Rav Shimon Shazuri. It follows the chachamim who say that we only are going to allow that from before the thing actually gets up on its own feet. Once it's up on its own feet, it doesn't look good. So midrabanan, the chachamim say it still needs its own shechita after it's gotten up. But it's an interesting opinion there of Rav Shimon Shazari. Okay.
Okay, back to
Okay, so now here's an animal where the legs were cut below the knee. That's called kasher. So that's called actually a treifa. If the animal has lost its legs above the knee, because we've got something called the tzomet hagidin as well, which is a treifa if that's damaged, and if it's missing also, it's the animal's considered a treifa. V'chein shenital tzomet hagidin. Oh, right. So it mentions it explicitly. Also, if the nerve juncture, or is it a nerve juncture? The tzomet hagidin, the juncture of the sinews. I'm not sure what the technical term is for that. Does the article give a technical term of the Somet Hagidin?
The
Direct translation of the Mishnah.
Right. The highlights of an animal. Let's see if it says, according to one view in the Gemara,
No, I don't want the commentary. The Mishnah. Translate the Mishnah.
If the hind legs of an animal was severed below the joint, it is fit. Above the joint, it is unfit. And likewise, if the meeting of the sinews.
Meeting of the sinews, that's it. Okay, so the meeting of the sinews is called the Tzomet Hagidin. If that's missing, animal is called a treifa. Nishbar ha'etzim. Okay, if the bone is broken, this is Nishbar ha'etzim. We're talking about a limb that is disconnected from the animal, right? It's got some sort of injury. Imrov habasar kayam. If it still has most of the flesh on it. So now, if he now shechts the animal, the limb that was hanging off the animal is considered part of the animal, and it's been shechted. So this is kosher meat. Okay, the imlav. But if it's missing the majority of the flesh from the bone that's hanging off, ein shrita samatato, it's considered eva min achai. So it's already like it's disconnected from the animal, and it doesn't become kosher now that it's been shechted. Okay. Zayin. Hashochet esa behema umatza bashilya. So he shechts the animal and finds a placenta. Nefesh hayafa tochlena. So if somebody has the desire to eat a placenta, very hungry, then it is kosher. The placenta is considered as if it's shechted as part of the animal. Ve'ena metam lo tumas ochlin. But what happens? Let's say the animal died below shchita and the placenta was expelled. Now the rest of the animal has got tumas nevela. What about the placenta? Is that is that considered food? No. The answer is that generally people don't eat placentas, and therefore it doesn't contract food tuma, and it doesn't contract tumas nevelos. It doesn't. It's completely tahor, because it's not considered normal food. However, chishev aleha. If a person looked at it and said, I'm hungry, I want to make that into food. So as soon as he has the doubt that this is now food, metama tumas ochlin, avalot tumas nevelas. So yes, it becomes it gets food tuma, which means now it can contract tuma as regular food, but it doesn't become nevela. Because his machshava doesn't convert it into food for the purpose. It doesn't do anything to make it into something that can be turned into an avela. So all it does is he converts it from non-food into food, and therefore it can contract that kind of tumor. But if the animal died and then he thought, maybe I'll eat the placenta, das on the nevela doesn't turn it into nevela tumor, even though it's not kosher. I mean, and dafka, because it's not kosher, I think. Just see if there's anything else. Okay. Shilya sheyatzis hamiktsasa. If a placenta has partially come out before the animal was shechted, okay, asura ba'achila, then it may not be eaten because it's been expelled and it's not it hasn't become tahor from a shchita, so it may not be eaten. V'siman v'lad ba'isha, and if a placenta is expelled from a woman or from a behema, it is considered as a sign that they were pregnant already, and it's and the next child that they bear will not be a bechor. That's the point of why it's a sign that they've given birth. Okay, hamuva keres. Now, so you have a cow that's giving birth for the first time. Shepila shilya, and it aborted, and all that came out was the placenta. Yashlichena laklavim. You can throw it out to the dogs. once again, we're dealing in dinner of bechoros over here. That the bechor is kadosh, but the placenta that comes out in the case of a stillbirth or of an aborted pregnancy, possibly where the fetus itself was just sort of disintegrated and there was no sign left of it, but there's still a placenta, it can be fed to dogs, no problem. But if this happened with an animal that was from kodshim, then everything that comes out of it is kadosh, and even the placenta has a kedusha, so that it has to be buried and may not be fed to dogs. And kovrin osa b'parashas drachim, and while we're there, we just mentioned a couple of things that are darkei omori that a person's not allowed to do. Burying a placenta at a crossroads. I'm not sure why they used to do it. I think that Gehati says that the menachshim would bury it at the crossroads because they thought it was a segula for a creature not to miscarry again. Okay, and it may not be hung on a tree. And he doesn't say what the intended purpose was of hanging a placenta from a tree, but it's a darkei amori, and it's aser to do such a thing. Okay, move on to a new subject now in Perek Hey. Also, there's an issur from the Torah to shecht an animal and its offspring on the same day. So also noheg bein ba'aretz, and it doesn't matter whether you're in Eretz Yisrael or Chutz La'aretz. You'll see there's some mitzvahs that we basically most of the prakim from here on talk about the different mitzvahs relating to animals, and it'll say whether it relates to Eretz Yisrael only or also Chutz La'aretz. It'll say if there's a bifnei habayis shelo bifnei habayis, if there's a temple or not a temple. Okay, so that they're all going to follow this common formula as we go along. So also it doesn't matter where you are. Bifnei habayis shelo bifnei habayis, it's got nothing to do with the temple. B'chulin of a mukdashin, and it doesn't matter whether it's chulin or kodshim. Okay, so now we give a basic case of what happens. Well, it's not actually a basic case. It's an interesting little edge case where you've got two animals which are chulin. Okay, so the first case that we're having is two animals that are chulin. Hashochet also ve'esbeno chulin b'chutz. So a normal case where you've got two chulin animals and somebody shechts the animal and its offspring outside the temple. Shneim ksherim, they're both kosher meat, and anyone else who comes along is allowed to eat them without any chashash because it was a good shechita. But the second one was done be'isur. Hasheni sofeg is arbaim. Whoever shechted the second animal gets 40 lashes for violating also esbeno. Okay, now what happens is you have kodshim b'chutz. These two animals, mother and child, were designated as korbanos in the temple, and somebody went and shechted them outside the temple. Harishon chayav kares. The first one is kares because of shechting a kodshim animal outside the yazara. Okay, we've learned about that before. What about the second one? The second one is pasul. Why? Because once the mother has been shechted, the child may not be shechted on that day, and therefore, even if he wanted to bring it in the temple, he would not be allowed to, because you've got to wait until the next day. It's called an animal that hasn't yet reached an appropriate time that it can be shechted. And since it is no longer an animal that could be brought inside the mikdash, you're not chayav kares for shechting it outside the mikdash. Remember, we had that little wrinkle in the halacha of shchutei chutz, is that it's got to be kosher to be brought inside in order to be chayav for bringing it outside. And so since the second animal is no longer kosher to be brought inside, there's no chiyuv of shchutei chutz, but there's still a chiyuv for also esbeno, as we'll see. So shneim psulim, since they're both kodshim that were shechted outside, they're both pasul, may not be eaten. Okay, ushnehem sof gimis arbaim, and both of them get lashes. Why? The first one because of shchutei chutz, and the second one because of also of esbeno. All right, next case, chulin bifnim. Some guy drags two chulin animals into the azara and shechts them inside. Shneihem psulim. Okay, because you're not allowed to bring chulin into the azara and shecht it, Both of the animals are considered not kosher and may not be eaten. Vasheni
is-
sofek is arbaim.
This is hay base, and you're saying that he brought two consecrated animals outside?
Yeah, this is all inside the first Mishnah. We're all in Hay Aleph.
Okay, all right. So I skipped. Okay, go ahead. I got it. I missed the sentence. Okay, consecrated animals inside. All right.
Right, so now he's bringing unconsecrated animals inside. Okay.
Right.
Shneihem psulim, both pasul. Asheni sofeg yes arbaim, and the second one gets lashes for also vespino. Kodshim bifnim. He brings two kodshim animals inside the mikdash like he should, except one of them is the child of the other. So the first one, Harishon kosher. Of course, the first one is fine because that's what he was supposed to do. Upater, it says pater. There's no chiyuv of anything because he did the right thing. Hasheni, but the one and he shouldn't have shechted. Hasheni sofek is arbaim upasol. Second one gets lashes and it's a pasul korban because it was brought before its time.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see some more edge cases as we go along. And back to Aleph Vav.
Aleph, Vav, and Chullin.
Yes.
Why don't I skip the page? Okay. What is right, okay. What is fit for turtle doves is unfit for young pigeons. What is fit
we know that's hay. We want Vav.
That's where I was. What is valid for the red cow is invalid for the decapitated heifer, which is valid for the decapitated heifer is invalid for the red cow. What is fit for Kohanim is unfit for Levites, and what is fit for Levites is unfit for Kohanim. What is tahor in earthenware utensils is tamei in all other utensils. What is tahor in all other utensils is tamei in earthenware utensils. What is tahor in wooden vessels is tamei in metal utensils, and what is tahor in metal vessels is tamei in wooden vessels. What is subject to tithing in bitter almonds is exempt in sweet ones. What is subject to tithing in sweet ones is exempt in bitter ones. Okay. Zion. Timad, as long as it is not fermented, it may not be purchased with the tithe money. And
Timid is basically it's a poor man's wine where you've taken the dregs of the grapes, just the little bits left and left them to steep in water, so it gets a little bit of flavor in it.
Okay. Timad, as long as it has not fermented, it may not be purchased with tithe money, and it renders a mikvah unfit. After it has been fermented, it may be purchased with tithe money, and it does not render a mikvah unfit. Brothers who are partners who when they are obligated to pay a korban, they are exempt from the animal tithe, but when they're obligated to give the animal tithe, they are exempt from the korban. Wherever there is a right of sale, there is no fine imposed, and wherever there is a fine imposed, there is no right of sale. Wherever there is refusal, there is no kalitza, and wherever there is kalitza, there is no refusal. Wherever there is a horn blast, there is no havdalah, and wherever there is a havdalah, there is no horn blast. If a festival falls on the eve of the Sabbath, the horn is sounded and no havdalah is recited. On the departure of the Sabbath, havdalah is recited and the horn is not sounded. How do we recite the havdalah? Who distinguishes between holy and holy? Where Joseph says between greater holiness and lesser holiness. Okay.
One more.
If one slaughters by cutting one of the organs of a bird or both organs of an animal, his slaughtering is valid, and the greater part of one organ is tantamount to its entirety. If Yehuda says until he severs the veridin, and if he severs half of one organ of a bird or a half of an organ of another animal, his slaughtering is invalid. If he severs the greater part of one organ of a bird or a greater part of both of organs of an animal, his slaughtering is valid.
Okay. Menachos.
We got those. Base hay, start there.
Yeah.
If he intended pickle with his comments, but not with the frankincense, or with the frankincense, but not with the comments, but Meir says it is pickle, and one is liable to karas over it. But the comments say there is no karas for it unless he intends pickle with all that renders it permissible. The comment occur with Reb Meir concerning the sinner's mincha offering and the jealousy mincha offering. If he intended to pickle with the comments, it is pickle, and one is liable to karas over it, since the comments is that which renders it permissible. If he slaughtered one of the lambs intending to eat the lulav tomorrow, or he burnt one of the spoonfuls of frankincense intending to eat the stew, the two arrangements tomorrow, Reb Meir says it is pickle, and one is liable to karas over it, but the comments say there is no pickle unless he intends pickle with all that renders it permissible. If he slaughtered one of the lambs intending to eat from it tomorrow, it is pickle, but its companion is invalid. However, if he intended to eat from his companion tomorrow, they are both valid. If one performs kibbutz on a mikvah offering intending to eat something which was not meant to be eaten, or to burn upon the altar something which is not meant to be burnt, it is valid. And Reb Eliezer validates it. If his intent was to eat something which is meant to be eaten, or to burn upon the altar something which is meant to be burnt, but less than an olive volume, it is valid. If his intent was to eat something half of olive volume and burn half of an olive volume, it is valid, for eating and altar burning are not combined. If he did not pour, or he did not mix, or he did not break, or he did into pieces, or he did not salt, or he did not wave, or he did not bring it near, or if he broke them into large pieces, or he did not anoint them, they are valid. If it's kumitz mixed with the kumitz of another, or the mincha offering of a kohanim, or the mincha offering of the anointed kohen, or the mincha offering of the libations, it is valid. The Yehuda says in the case of the mikvah offering of the anointed kohen and the mikvah offering of libations, it is invalid because this one's mixture is thicker and this one's mixture is thinner, and they are both absorbed from each other. Okay. On to Avodah Zarah. If one finds fragments of images, they are permitted. If he found a figure of a hand or a figure of a foot, they are prohibited because such objects are worshipped. If one finds utensils upon which there is a figure of the sun, or the figure of the moon, or a figure of a dragon, he should cast them into the Dead Sea. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, I'm sorry, he should cast them into the Dead Sea. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says those which are prominent utensils are prohibited, those which are common utensils are permitted. Reb Yossi says he may grind it and scatter it to the wind or cast it into the sea, and they said to him, even so, it becomes fertilizer, which is prohibited, as it said, nothing that of that which is banned shall cleave to your hand. Proclus, the son of Philophus, asked the Rabbi Gamaliel when he was bathing in the bathhouse of Aphrodite. He said to him, "It is written in your Torah, nothing of that which is banned shall cleave to your hand. Why then do you bathe in the bathhouse of Aphrodite?" And he replied, "One may not answer the bathhouse." And when he went out, he said to him, "I did not come into her domain, she came into my domain." We do not say the bathhouse is made as an adornment to Aphrodite, but we say Aphrodite is made as an adornment to the bathhouse. Another reason, if they would pay you a large sum of money, would you still not enter before your idol naked, or with your seminal emission, or urinate before it? If this one stands by the opening of the sewer pipe and all that you eat will urinate in front of her, it is stated only the God, that which is treated as a God is prohibited, and that which is not treated as a God is permitted. If Gentiles worship mountains, that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
On to Sota. Gimel. The following women are forbidden to eat truma. One who says, "I defiled to you," or "I want to witness myself that witness testifies that she is defiled," and one who says, "I will not drink," or one whose husband does not want to give her the drink, and one whose husband is cohabited with her on the way. How much to deal with her? He must take her to the court of the place, and they designate 2 learned men to accompany them, lest he cohabited with her on the way. Rabbi Yehuda says her husband can be trusted regarding her. They bring her up to the high court in Jerusalem, where they should still fear her in the manner in which they still fear the witnesses of capital cases. They say to her, "My daughter, why causes much impropriety? Levity causes much, childlessness causes much, and bad neighbors cause much. Do for the sake of his great name, which is written in holiness, that it not be erased in the water." And they break to her insolence, which neither she nor her father's family deserve to hear. If she said, "I'm defiled," she writes a recipe for a marriage contract, and she is divorced. If she said, "I am pure," they take her up to the eastern gate, which was opposite the Nicanor gate, which they give her the women to nectar of adultery, the bitter waters of drink. Purify the women who give in birth, and purify those who have received coverage from Saharas. Saras. The Kohen may hold it, takes all the garment. If they tore, they tore it. If they become tattered, they become tattered, until he uncovers her bosom and he undoes her hair. And Yehuda says her bosom was comely, he did not uncover it, and her hair was comely, he did not loosen it. If she was dressed in white, that's it. Okay, and we are on to Bikurim.
Bikurim, yeah.
Truma Meiser is like Bikurim in 2 ways, and like Truma in 2 ways. It may be taken from the clean for the unclean, and from that which is not nearby, like Bikurim, and it renders forbidden the threshing floor, and it is become quantity like Truma. And that drug is a tree in 3 ways, like vegetables in 1 way, and the tree regarding oil, revi, and the 7th year, and like vegetables in 1 way, and that its tithing is at the time of its gathering. So Rabbi Gamliel.
Hold on. Just
what happened? I started with
carry. Sorry, you're carrying. You're talking about an Esra. Go ahead.
And like vegetables in 1 way, and that its tithing is at the time of its gathering. So Rabbi Eliezer said it was like a tree at all things.
Yeah.
A tree of bipeds is like the blood of animals, and that it renders seeds susceptible, and one is not liable on account of the blood of creeping things. And we are on to Torah.
No, there's 1 more in Bikurim. I think you started 1 Mishna too early. That's why I got confused.
All right. the koi, the koi is in some ways like an undomesticated animal, and in some ways like a cattle, and in some ways like cattle, and like an undomesticated animal. And in some ways, it is neither like cattle nor like an undomesticated animal.
Okay.
Okay, we go on to para, and we have, here we go. Hey, if one diverts a spring into the vat of a wine pressing into the water holes, the water is, come on, the water is invalid for savim, for mitzorim, and for concentrating it as made katas, because it was not filled in a vessel. Okay, and para, Zion. If 5 people filled 5 barrels in order to perform 5 sanctifications and decided to perform a single sanctification, or if they filled the barrels in order to perform a single sanctification and they then decided to perform 5 sanctifications, they are all valid. If a single person filled 5 barrels in order to perform 5 sanctifications and then decided to perform a single sanctification, only the last one is valid. And if he filled them in order to perform a single sanctification and then decided to perform 5 sanctifications, only the first one that he sanctified is valid. And he said to someone, sanctify these for yourself. Only the first one is valid. Sanctify these for me. They are all valid. If someone fills with one hand and performs a different activity, and with his other hand, and he fills for himself and for another, or if he fills for 2 people simultaneously, invalidates all, no, simultaneously both are disqualified. For a different activity, invalidates during the filling, whether it is for himself or for somebody else.
Can.
Okay, all right. Mr. Shep, great trip. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. And we will meet again in like 3 weeks.
Tuesday on the 15th, I have. Unless something changes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. People have a great trip. Enjoy your parents.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy. Have a great time. Thank you. And thank you, Father.